Hi, my name is Laura Moretti. I'm a senior lecturer in pre-modern Japanese studies at the University of Cambridge, Faculty of Asian and Middle Eastern Studies. Today, I would like to entice you into a session on the Japanese language. The session is designed for those of you who have no knowledge of the Japanese language. Therefore, be prepared to explore a language that might be completely new to you. Before we kick off, I would recommend that you have something, sorry, I'm moving my face in the meanwhile, that you have something to take notes with, because there will be some quizzes during the session. Today's session is structured around main 4 elements. First, I will discuss how to introduce yourself in Japanese, and that will constitute really the bulk of our session today. We will then have a quick look at the phonetic system of the Japanese language. We will also briefly touch upon the writing system, and then at the end I will explain why you should consider studying Japanese language with us at Cambridge. So let's start with how we can introduce ourselves in Japanese. Laura Moretti desu. Laura Moretti desu. Okay, so this is a very simple sentence. I said my name, Laura Moretti, and I added this word that we pronounce desu. Desu is the verb to be. If I use a little bit of jargon here, it is the copula, okay? Now, the desu is placed always at the end of the sentence, and it indicates I am, you are, he is, she is, we are, you are, they are. So the point of this is that there is no conjugation based on the person. Easy peasy, isn't it? You say your name and then you add this. Laura Moretti desu. Okay, now you try with your own name. Go for it. If we were in a classroom, I would have listened to all your names. Unfortunately, this is done for whoever is behind the screen. So I trust that you said your name and this. Laura Moretti desu. Let's learn 2 pieces of vocab that might be useful. One is sensei, teacher, and one is gakusei, student. So now I can say Laura Moretti desu, sensei desu. Okay, let me have a little quiz here. I am a teacher. Will I say desu sensei, or will I say sensei desu? The point being where you place desu in the sentence. And the answer being B, indeed, sensei desu. Okay, so now can you please translate this sentence into Japanese? I am a student. Go for it. I'll give you a few seconds. I am a student. Precisely. Gakusei desu. Gakusei desu. So far, very easy. You just give your name plus this. This at the end of the sentence is the copula. I am, you are, he is, she is, we are, you are, they are. You can also, instead of your name, put anything else that goes with to be. So, I am a teacher, sensei desu. I am a student, gakusei desu. Now, let's step up from here, going back to our self-introduction. 私はラウラ・モレッティです。よろしくお願いいたします。私はラウラ・モレッティです。よろしくお願いします。So what is going on here? First of all, we have a longer sentence to introduce ourselves. The second bit is precisely what we have just heard, right? But the first bit is different. I am saying here, 私はラウラ・モレッティです。私 Repeat after me. 私 Watashi wa Laura Moretti desu. So what is watashi? Watashi is the pronoun for the first person. The first person pronoun can actually be dropped. Hence, my previous sentence without any pronoun I at the beginning of the sentence. Here, watashi is followed by this wa. Wa is a particle, a very small particle, and yet particle are small but powerful. And wa is there to indicate that watashi is the topic of the sentence. It is a particle that marks the subject. In this case, the subject and the topic are the same. Once you get to study Japanese, you will understand that there are other particles to mark different elements of grammatical elements in a sentence. And you will discover that actually wa and another particle ga are very complex. But for the time being, we keep it simple. Watashi, pronoun for the first person, subject, accompanied by the particle wa that tells us watashi is the subject and topic of the sentence. Watashi wa Laura Moretti desu. Normally, when you introduce yourself, you add this sentence, which is a little bit long. So I'll go slowly first, and then I'll speed up. Yoroshiku onegai shimasu. Quicker. Yoroshiku onegai shimasu. Yoroshiku onegai shimasu. Try to repeat after me. Yoroshiku onegai shimasu. Yoroshiku onegai shimasu. Now faster. Yoroshiku onegai shimasu. So this is a very useful expression that you use once you have introduced yourself and you, in a way, ask the other person to be good to you and you put yourself in their hands. So yoroshiku onegai shimasu, please be good to me, right? Now, we have learned a very basic way of introducing yourself. If you go to your friends and say, watashi wa, well, you don't need to introduce yourself to your friends, but as an exercise, watashi wa John desu, or watashi wa Alice desu, you will certainly impress them. But there is much more that we can do with our self-introductions because the Japanese language has a number of degrees of formality. I personally like very much this aspect of the Japanese language. And it shows in all aspects of the Japanese, of the language. And it also appears in the introduction. So I will give you just a little idea of what I'm talking about by, first of all, looking at how you can introduce yourself in a very informal way. What you will see is a short clip from a TV drama, a Japanese TV drama, that is featuring secondary school kids, secondary school students. And hopefully you will find it quite interesting. So let's listen to this self-introduction, which is very informal. Hi. So ここまでです。So let's listen again. Okay, so what he says is, ore endo yoroshiku. So we have learned that he should have said, watashi wa endo desu. Yoroshiku onegai shimasu. So what is going on? Endo is the name of this guy. He is introducing himself to people of the same age in a very informal way. So instead of using watashi, he uses a different first person pronoun, which is ore. And ore is normally used by cool males. There is a certain amount of gender differentiation in the Japanese language. In this case, ore for first person male speech. Ore, endo. What is also dropped here is the particle wa. Ore, endo. Very informal. I wouldn't suggest that you go around introduce yourself like this to people you don't know, because you want to keep a certain degree of politeness. Watashi wa endo desu would do it. But if you are among people of your own age and you want to sound very informal, this is a possibility to go with it. And the long yoroshiku onegai shimasu is abridged into yoroshiku. Yoroshiku. Okay. So there are degrees of informality, but there are also many degrees of formality. So now we're going to listen to another self-introduction that actually is much formal. And this is again from a Japanese TV drama, and more precisely to the ad that was made about this drama. The drama introduces you to the world of ikebana, which is a traditional Japanese art of flower arrangement. You will see the female protagonist looks very posh in her kimono, and the household she lives in is very, very formal. So let's give it a go. 月島桃にございます。月島桃にございます。Okay, so how does she introduce herself? And by the way, in the second half, the man who is taking care of the flower arrangement is actually her father. And she still has a very high degree of formality to her father, who is also the head of the particular ikebana school she belongs to. Leaving that aside, what she says is, Tsukishima momo ni gozaimasu. So this has been dropped and substituted by ni gozaimasu. If you were here at Cambridge and doing your second year with us and choosing classical Japanese, you would understand where it comes from. But I can't go into that amount of detail today. The point, though, is that this, which is a very polite copula, a very polite way of saying I am, you are, he is, etc., becomes ni gozaimasu, which is even more polite. By using ni gozaimasu, you really put yourself down and put the other person, your interlocutor, above you in terms of social differentiation, and therefore show respect. Tsukishima momo ni gozaimasu. So I could say, Laura Moretti ni gozaimasu. I don't think I have many opportunities to use that in my daily life, but I hope that this gives you an idea of how the Japanese language allows for modulations which are based on the degree of formality. This is polite. You can use it wherever you want, in any situation, it will be okay. Dropping it, ore endo, is not very formal. It's really casual. Substituting it with ni gozaimasu brings the level of formality much up. Okay, let's do a little bit more of step up. You can put something in front of your introduction, depending on the time of the day. For example, here, I don't know, I think it is around 2 p.m. when I'm doing this. So I would say, konnichiwa, watashi wa Laura Moretti desu. Or I can say, konnichiwa, Laura Moretti desu. Because I told you, the first person pronoun and the particle wa can be dropped. Konnichiwa, we use it during the day, after the morning, before the evening. So what happens if I see you in the morning? I see somebody in the morning and I want to introduce myself. Ohayou gozaimasu. Ohayou gozaimasu. And I say hi, but in the morning, right? Ohayou gozaimasu. It can be abbreviated if you are among friends as Ohayo. At a certain point in the 90s, I think something on the Japanese TV made it popular to say Oha, but I think that that's long gone. So, Ohayou gozaimasu. Can you repeat after me? Ohayou gozaimasu. Ohayou gozaimasu. We have already seen konnichiwa. What about in the evening? Konbanwa. Konbanwa. So I could say, Ohayou gozaimasu, Laura Moretti desu. Konnichiwa, Laura Moretti desu. Konbanwa, Laura Moretti desu. Now here, you would not say oyasumi nasai and then introduce yourself, because oyasumi nasai means good night. So you can use it at home with your parents or your siblings, or, oyasumi nasai, have a good night of sleep. Yeah. Now, the normal word that is used before a self-introduction, because when you're introducing yourself, you really don't know the other person. The normal word that is used is this one, hajimemashite. Hajimemashite. That means, literally, it is the first time. So, hajimemashite, Laura Moretti desu. Or, hajimemashite, watashi wa Laura Moretti desu. Okay, so hajimemashite is very useful to introduce yourself first time meeting somebody. So let's wrap up. At this point, you can really introduce yourself in Japanese. Hajimemashite, watashi wa Laura Moretti desu. Sensei desu. Yoroshiku onegai shimasu. We have pronounced a lot of Japanese words today, and now I would like to look at the phonetic system. It will be not an in-depth analysis of the phonetic system. Look out for more videos where we also explain the phonetic system in due course. Okay, the Japanese phonetic system works around syllables. That's why when we talk about the writing system and the two phonetic systems, we talk about syllabaries. So the sounds are syllables. First of all, we have the vowels. A, I, U, E, O. Now, let's talk about vowels for a second. The vowels in Japanese are very easy. And one vowel can only be pronounced in one way. A, I, U, E, O. In this order. This is the order in which normally they are learned. So repeat after me. A, I, U, E, O. A, I, U, E, O. Now, as you can say from my accent, I'm not originally from the UK. My mother tongue is Italian, actually. So if you learn a little bit of Italian or even Spanish, the vowels in Japanese work precisely like the vowels in Italian or Spanish. So for an Italian native speaker, the phonetic system of the Japanese language is very, very easy. And it's much easier than English, if you think about it. Think about any non-native speaker of English learning English, and we have to learn that cat. But then you say ball, and you use the same A vowel, but one is pronounced as cat, The other is pronounced as ball. And you think, why? In Japanese, you don't need to ask why, because the sound is only one. A, I, U, E, O. Now, there are also long vowels where they are elongated sounds. O, for example, can become O. Ohayo gozaimasu, ohayo gozaimasu, ohayo gozaimasu. The first O is short, ohayo, yo is long, ohayo gozaimasu. So going back to our syllables, once we have dealt with the vowels, then we have syllables. Ka, ki, ku, ke, ko, sa, shi, su, se, so, ta, chi, tsu, te, to, na, ni, nu, ne, no, ha, hi, hu, he, ho, ma, mi, mu, me, mo. Then we have ya, you, yo. We do not have sounds in between. Da, di, do, de, do, which is not an L, is not an R. It's da, di, do, de, do. If you again watch TV dramas, Japanese TV dramas, you will find sometimes the kind of rough Yakuza type, ore, and they say the R, like an Italian R. But normally this is da, di, do, de, do. And then we have wa, we have seen it in the particle for the subject, wa. And then we have also the syllable o, which is pronounced o, precisely like the o over here. And then we have a final syllable, and I do say syllable, not consonant here, which is It's not a consonant, even though for us n is a consonant. It actually comes from a modification of the sound mu, pronounced as and so it is more of a so again, if you study with us and if you choose classical Japanese in the second year, you can understand where it comes from. But the idea is that you have these syllables, and this is the whole phonetic system of Japanese. It's extremely easy. Let's look at this two columns of sounds for a second. Na, ni, nu, ne, no. Think about no. In Japanese, in English, you say no, no, right? But in Japanese, it is just no. So don't get confused. Another sound that maybe native speakers of English might find a little bit hard at the beginning is the sound ta, ta. It's not ta, ta. There is not t. It's ta, ta. So if you're studying Italian, if you're studying Spanish, I think that what you're studying in these other languages can be very useful for pronouncing Japanese. The only tricky vowel is su, because we say sushi, so we pronounce S and U, sushi, sushi. But in certain words, the su becomes s. Think about this. So far, we have pronounced it as this, not desu, right? Another word is ski desu, ski desu, ski desu. I like you, I love you, ski desu. It can be about a person. It can be also sushi ga suki desu, ski desu. In which case, the s sound is not su, but it is ski desu. So in a way, you drop the U when you pronounce it. That's the only difficult sound in Japanese. So, 私は Laura Moretti です。よろしくお願いします。As you can see, I don't pronounce su, I pronounce it as s. What about the writing system? Now, I can only but briefly give you a glimpse of the richness of the Japanese writing system, because it combines 3 different types of writing: kanji, hiragana, and katakana. Kanji are what we call logographic characters. That means that each kanji, each character bearing a meaning. In this case, this character here means person. This character here means mountain. This character here means moon. Because the character carries a meaning, you can pronounce it in different languages. In Japanese, this character would normally be read hito. That's the Japanese word that has the meaning of person. And therefore, the character that means person is read as hito. Then we have this one for yama. This one for tsuki. If we were to read it in the same characters in Chinese, we could. The Chinese word for that meaning would be used. Now, if you're interested to learn more about characters, we should be able to give you a video soon on this same channel, so stay tuned for that. For the time being, I'd like you to remember that the Japanese language uses logographic characters. They're called kanji in Japanese. Each character carries a meaning and multiple readings. In this case, we have seen one reading, which is the Japanese word for that particular meaning. Now, characters, as you can see from this slide, are in common between Japanese and Chinese, but the Japanese language and the Chinese language are very different languages. So if you are unsure, I like East Asian languages, but I don't know, Japanese or Chinese, do a little bit of research because they are very, very different languages. And one of the main differences is that the Japanese language follows a subject, object, verb, a word order, whereas the Chinese language is a subject, verb, object. And there are many more differences. So just remember, for the time being, Chinese and Japanese are very different languages. If you don't know which one you're interested in, do a little bit more of research to find out what the differences are. For the Japanese writing system in daily life, normally around 2,000 characters are used. They can be combined in compounds, but there are many more Chinese characters, so originally Chinese characters, kanji, that exist. I think that the most comprehensive dictionary, which has been assembled by a scholar whose surname is Morohashi, contains around 50,000 characters. But daily life use in Japan around 2,000. The Japanese language the Japanese writing system also uses phonetic syllabaries. Hiragana being one, katakana being the other. And they are around 46 each. So the hiragana syllabary works in this way. You remember the vowels a, I, u, e, o, kaki, kuke, ko, sashi, suse, so, and this is how they would be written in hiragana. Each sign, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc., carries a sound, and only a sound. It's a phonetic syllabary. So I could write any Japanese word in phonetic hiragana. Now, a little quiz for you. Do you recall how to say I am? Is A or B? Yes, it is B. Watashi. So how do we write watashi? With the syllable that is read as wa, the syllable that is read as ta, and the syllable that is read as shi. And that is how the hiragana for this word would look like. As I said, any word in Japanese can be written in hiragana. If you look at illustrated picture books for children in Japanese, a lot of the words, the majority of the words are in hiragana. And then little by little, they start learning the characters. Hiragana can also be used as phonetic readings for a character. And our first year students find it very useful, even though we try not to give too much of these phonetic readings in hiragana. Katakana follows the same structure, the same idea. It looks very different, as you can see. Again, if you decide to study with us, you will learn more in the first year of how hiragana and katakana came about, and actually they derive from characters. But leaving that for another time, katakana is normally used in modern Japanese for certain words which are loans, so words imported from other languages, computer, for example, or elevator, loan words. There are other instances where you can use katakana, but loan words is what I would like you to remember for today. Loan words include also our names. So katakana is what is used to write in Japanese our name. Now, my name in English is Laura, but in Italian is Laura. So normally I would use my own Italian pronunciation as the basis for thinking, how can I write my name in katakana? So the first thing is to adjust the sound of a name, Laura, to the syllables that the Japanese language has. So in Japanese, there is no difference between L and R, right? Well, as we saw before. So my name becomes Laura. Not very glamorous, Laura, but that is what it is. So you need to take your name and adjust it to the syllables that the Japanese language has, the Japanese phonetic system has. Once you have worked out the phonetic rendition of your name in Japanese, da, u, da in my case, then you choose your katakana, da, u, da. And even visually it's not looking very good in my case, da, u, da, but that it is. So maybe when you have some time, you can go back to this chart, think, what's my name? How it can be modified to fit the katakana, the phonetic system of the Japanese, and what can I choose? Actually, these are the basic sounds. There are many more sounds. So again, if you're interested, stay tuned for another video. Let's recap. What happens when you write the sentence that we have learned? Watashi wa Laura Moretti desu. Yoroshiku onegaishimasu. As you can see, watashi can be written with a character. I could have used, sorry, I'm going back here. I could really have used this way of writing it, watashi, in phonetic hiragana. But I can also use the corresponding, character here, watashi. Watashi wa hiragana. My name is in katakana because it is technically a long word. Laura Moretti. This, the copula, is in hiragana. It doesn't have a meaning as such. It has a grammatical function, but not a meaning. This. Therefore, we use the hiragana. Yoroshiku, part of it is a kanji, and then shi and ku, yoroshiku, and then o, and then we have the kanji for negai. Even though the sound I is a hiragana, we call this okurigana. Forget about it for the time being, but kanji, hiragana, and then shimasu, again in hiragana. As you can see, the Japanese writing system mixes kanji, hiragana, katakana. I hope that you got an idea of how rich this language is. it is a challenge, but it is a good challenge. And if you are interested in studying Japanese, why don't you think about studying it with us at Cambridge? And why studying it with us? These are the sort of answers that I can give to these questions, and probably there are many more. First of all, we do offer a very rigorous language training, and that allows you to reach the Japanese language proficiency test, the highest level, by the 3rd year. Some of our students do it by the 3rd year, which is really impressive and opens up a lot of doors, for example, for scholarships and so on and so forth. Now, it's not just a language course. So you have to be interested in the language, in the Japanese language, because we do teach a lot of language. But do remember that there are also content papers, as we call them, or modules would be the most normal way of defining them, which cover a variety of cultural areas. So with us, you can study about contemporary Japanese society, Japanese history, Japanese literature, international politics, and also classical Japanese. So we really give you a very rich program that allows you to become proficient with the Japanese language, but also culturally proficient about different aspects of Japanese culture and society, both modern and pre-modern. We also train you in analytical and writing skills, which are much sought after by employers, as you can imagine. Of course, as you may already know, the Cambridge system allows you to one-to-one supervision system, which is tailored on you and your academic needs. We really get a very good idea of where you are, what you need to do in order to get the support you may want in order to bloom in your academic career. And we also have exciting extracurricular activities, and normally they really open up your intellectual horizons beyond the areas that we cover within Japanese studies. We are a very dynamic team. I'm just one of many colleagues who are passionate about Japan, passionate about the Japanese language, and passionate in teaching young generations to share the same passion and the same skills. And I will leave you with one of our 4th year students, Joseph Bills. Again, I've asked Joseph to introduce himself in Japanese. Joseph is now currently writing his dissertation on a quite challenging early 19th century Japanese text. But today, I just asked him to introduce himself in Japanese. Here we go.
皆様、こんにちは。私はジョセフです。私は4年生の学生です。皆様がモレッツ先生のゼミを楽しんでいることを願っています。どうぞよろしくお願いします。
よろしくお願いいたします。ということで、今日の授業がこれで終わりということなんですけれども、So, this is all for today. And as we normally say after some work has been done, お疲れ様でした。お疲れ様でした。And this is all on my part. I hope to see you maybe at Cambridge. Bye.